And, it really hit me watching this episode and listening to Triple H talk about NXT in one of the video packages as a brand. It's no longer a developmental brand. He says, we are a brand. And yes, he wants to build a brand and he wants to cement a legacy for himself and make the company some extra money. But I think there is a longer term play here. And that is Triple H wants to effectively kill the indie scene. He wants to raid the indie scene and bleed it dry and kill it. Now think about it, okay? Think of all the conference calls where he talks about teaching everybody their playbook, the WWE playbook. Doesn't matter what you learn out there, where you're from. You come here, you've got to learn the WWE style. You wouldn't go from one football team to the other and use the plays from the old football team. You'd learn the new plays, right? That's the analogy he loves to use. And all the years that this guy had to hear about every indie darling under the sun and what great wrestlers they are. And Bryan Danielson is the best wrestler in the world. That used to be what people would call him. Maybe some might even call him that to this day. But, when Daniel Bryan was in Ring of Honor and on the indies doing his thing, he was widely regarded as the best wrestler in the world. And I wish I remember what interview it was, but this would have been when Danielson was on top still in ROH. And Triple H made a comment in some interview to the effect of, because he was asked about that, and he said something to the effect of, can you really call yourself the best wrestler in the world when you're wrestling in front of 500 people or 50 people or something like that? I'm sure it just annoyed the crap out of him at that time. This probably would have been when Triple H was the world champion, dominating Raw on top of the world, or maybe a few years after that. And you just know it annoyed him. All these little guys, doing flippy moves, thinking they're wrestlers. And so now, all these years later, and I have to give him credit for this. It's actually quite genius what Triple H is doing, even though most people don't see it. He's going after all of this top-name indie talent, building a core of those guys who can help carry his brand, this brand that he's created for himself. Help create that buzz, because if there's one thing NXT has now in spades, more maybe than any other promotion, it's buzz. Okay, there is a buzz around NXT, like it's the best thing since sliced bread. It's a hot ticket, okay, so they've created that for themselves, and he wants those guys also to help sell those tickets in many of the same markets that these guys made a name for themselves in, so they can successfully compete with the promotions in that area and take some of that business away from them. These guys are a weapon for Triple H. It's not that Triple H has suddenly become a mark for the indies. His goal is to kick their ass and take their fans, with the hope being that, say, 3 years down the road or 5 years down the road, when they're all weakened, he won't have to worry about where to get the next indie star from, because by then, all the new stars will be products of the Performance Center. That's the long-term goal here, not to keep taking indie guys. It's to beat the indies into submission, take a few of their top guys now, but beat them into submission, start now, and so a few years down the road, he won't have to worry about the indies. He won't have to look to the indies anymore. They'll have, almost like a warehouse of these machines that they're creating at the Performance Center. They'll be self-sustainable at that point, and they won't have to worry about going out and getting the Samoa Joes and the Finn Balors and the Sami Zayns and the Kevin Owens of the world. They won't need to look to the indies to get these guys. But he knows he can't do that without bringing some of them into the fold. That's why we're likely going to get Samoa Joe soon enough on NXT. I mean, think about it. You strip away those top 4 or 5 guys, the core of NXT, if they were to get called up tomorrow to invade the main roster, what are you left with? Kaz and Enzo? Tyler Breeze? Baron Corbin? I mean, I love Kaz and Enzo, and I'm a huge Tyler Breeze fan, but those guys are not selling out 3,000-seat buildings on the road and bringing in new subscribers to the network. Now, they do have a strong women's division, stronger than the main roster, at least, but that alone is not a draw. So, bravo to Triple H. You magnificent bastard. I see what you're doing here. And if you're an indie promoter, if you're Ring of Honor especially, watch your back. There's already talk of WWE wanting the Briscoes when their contracts are up this summer. Maybe Adam Cole, who should end up in WWE. Adam Cole, I think, would be a fine fit in WWE and a great spokesman for the company. But it's all part of this longer-term play for a guy who I don't really think has much of a fondness at all for the indies. I don't think he ever did. In fact, for years, WWE thumbed its nose at the indies, thinking those guys didn't know how to work. Now they're embracing them? Come on. Open your eyes.